Did you know that you can command a man's heart simply by affecting his pride? But do you truly understand what this entails? Today, I will unveil a hidden secret about how the masculine ego operates. A secret that many men fear and few women comprehend. If you master this, he will love you like never before. But there is a cost you must be willing to pay. Are you ready to discover the truth? Many believe that men only feel loved when you give them what they want, but what they actually crave is something much deeper. Love, respect, even loyalty can be obtained through an unexpected path. But everything begins with a simple principle, affecting his pride. What I will show you will completely change how you view relationships, and believe me, it will transform your life as well. See, Jung, one of history's most influential psychologists, understood that the masculine ego is a minefield, but also its weakest point. A man's pride is like a crystal castle. It appears indestructible, but with the right approach, you can shatter it. I don't speak of humiliation or manipulation, but of understanding the psychology behind his pride. Do you want to know how you can use this to your advantage? Most people are mistaken when trying to understand masculine emotions. Pride is not just an obstacle, it's an opportunity. If you touch it strategically, you can make that man love you more intensely than you imagine. But what happens when that ego feels compromised? How does a man truly react when his pride is put at stake? I assure you it's much more complex than you think. What I will share today is not magic nor cheap tricks. It's a strategy based on deep psychological principles, something used in couples therapy, in business, and in interpersonal relations. If you can comprehend this, you will have the key to transform how men relate to you. I will guide you step by step, but only if you are willing to leave behind what you believed you knew about men. Are you prepared to take this first step? The masculine ego is a delicate construction. At its core, it's not filled with empty pride. It's filled with insecurities, fears, and hidden desires. Men seek constant validation, not just for their achievements, but for what they think others think of them. Touching this pride doesn't mean destroying it, but understanding its fragility. And this is the first step to establishing a deeper and more authentic connection. Imagine that you touch this sensitive point. How do you think he will react? Many would think he would flee or become defensive, but in reality, something much more interesting happens. His pride is wounded, but it's in this moment, when he seeks you most, when he needs you most. In this instant, you can decide. Will you help him heal or let him fall deeper? Reflect. Would you dare to challenge his ego to get closer to his heart? A man's pride, although it appears unbreakable, is like a cardboard shield, a shield that strengthens with each compliment, but crumbles with a small crack. Carl Jung understood this as a manifestation of his shadow, that hidden part of the psyche that fears being seen as weak or vulnerable. By making a man confront his pride, in reality, you are helping him face his own vulnerability. The real challenge is not wounding his pride. The real challenge is using that moment of vulnerability to open a door to a genuine relationship. This is where the magic happens, when you can sustain him at his weakest point, and instead of pulling away, offer him a space to heal. This is what builds true love, one that doesn't depend on appearances or superficiality, but on mutual acceptance. Now, how can you do this effectively? The key lies in subtlety, in not making him feel that you are manipulating, but in making him see that you understand him on a profound level. The way you approach, how you react, and the words you choose are crucial. It's not a matter of mind games, but of real emotional communication. With this knowledge, you can change the dynamic of any relationship. And the best part is that he won't see it coming. This is the moment when you must decide. Will you continue feeding conventional rules or dare to explore a deeper approach? Men don't need your submission, they need your understanding. And when you can see beyond pride, you can access a part of him that few have the privilege to know. But to do this, first you must be willing to challenge your own understanding of love. The masculine ego is not just a barrier, it's a reflection of his deepest fears. Many men live in constant fear of being perceived as weak. Jung called this the shadow. The shadow, although often rejected, has the power to transform into a source of strength if handled correctly. And it's here where your ability to touch this ego can bring one of the most significant transformations of his life. What most don't understand is that when a man shows himself vulnerable, he's giving you his greatest power. It's an act of trust, although it doesn't always seem so. When you cross the barrier of his pride and allow him to be vulnerable, you enter a space where real emotions begin to flow. Here, there are no longer masks, only the person he truly is. And this is the moment when love can flourish. Mutual respect in a relationship is never built from ego, but from vulnerability. If you do this right, you will not only get him to love you, but to respect you more deeply. True respect is not a product of blind admiration, but of authentic acceptance of the other's imperfections. This is where ego loses strength and connection converts into something more meaningful. Masculine desire is intimately linked to his self-esteem, and his self-esteem, to a large extent, is built around his pride. When you touch this pride strategically, you are touching his deepest desire, to be seen, to be recognized. Men don't just seek to be admired, they seek to be understood. The desire that unleashes when you can understand his ego this way is the desire for a love that transcends the physical. What few know is that the most powerful relationships are built with patience. It's not about wounding his pride on purpose, but being capable of recognizing the moments when you can, subtly, make him see that there's more to him than what he shows. This patience will allow you to access a deeper connection, one that may seem out of reach for those who are not willing to go beyond the superficial. How do men react when they see that you no longer idealize them, when you no longer need them to validate yourself but understand them deeply? This is the power game that few dare to play. True intimacy is built when you stop seeking constant approval and instead focus on understanding and connecting. This is where fear is eliminated and true connection takes place. What you have discovered so far is just the beginning. You are about to unveil an approach that will completely change your understanding of love, respect, and power in relationships. The content you find here is not something common, it's a perspective that few have the privilege to know. And if you continue exploring this channel, you will approach a truth that few come to understand. I assure you that what comes could transform your life irrevocably. A relationship is not defined by what we do for the other, but by what we are willing to accept and understand. When you can touch a man's pride in the right way, you not only change the dynamic between you, but become the person he wants to be for you. This is not something that occurs overnight. It's a gradual process of understanding, patience, and above all, empathy. Each man is different, but all have a weak point, a place where their pride can be touched subtly. By doing this, you can help him convert into a better version of himself. It's not about playing with his ego, but understanding the person he truly is. And in the end, this knowledge will lead you to a stronger, more meaningful, and more lasting relationship. Do you dare to begin this journey? Men don't always realize they are dancing with their own ego. Each interaction, each word, is an opportunity to challenge this ego or strengthen it. When you can touch it in the right way, you are creating a dance where both participate. But don't be mistaken, this is not a superficial dance. It's one that has the power to transform how they see themselves and how they see you. Sometimes it's not words that change the course of a relationship, but small, almost imperceptible gestures. A simple change in how you look, in how you behave, can challenge a man's entire pride. This is where true influence shows itself, not in confrontation, but in subtlety, in the ability to make him see his own reflections without him realizing it. Words are more powerful than you believe. They can build, but they can also destroy. And a man's ego is extremely sensitive to the words he chooses to hear. When you use the right words at the right moment, you can make a man see his own vulnerability and in that same instant can change the direction of his life. It's the power of well-chosen words, the power of authentic influence. What you need to understand is that masculine pride is not something negative in itself. In fact, it can be a powerful engine for personal growth. The problem lies in how we handle it. If you understand his pride, you can teach him to evolve, to see beyond his own image and reach true connection. That's the objective, not to destroy, but to expand his vision of the world and himself. True connection doesn't occur when everything goes well. It occurs when both can show their vulnerabilities and still feel safe. This type of love is not based on perfection, but on acceptance. Accepting that both have their fears, their flaws, and that despite this, they can build something stronger. When a man allows you to enter this space of vulnerability, it's because he trusts you in a deep and genuine way. The ego, at its core, is a defense. It's a way to protect oneself from emotional wounds, from past rejections, from failures. When you touch this ego, you are not attacking. You are inviting him to evolve, to leave his comfort zone. It's there where, paradoxically, ego converts into a point of connection instead of an obstacle. Before being able to understand another's ego, you must understand your own. Self-knowledge is the key to any type of meaningful relationship. Only when you can look at your own fears, your own pride, can you truly understand what another is living. This journey of self-discovery is what prepares you to touch others' egos in a way that transforms them. Changing your perspective about pride is the first step to transforming the relationship. When you stop seeing ego as an enemy and begin to see it as an opportunity, everything changes. This is the moment when you can enter a man's heart, when you no longer worry about his pride, but use it as a catalyst to approach him. It's a mentality shift that changes everything. The courage to challenge a man's ego is not an act of aggression, but an act of compassion. By touching his pride in the right way, you give him the opportunity to grow, to see beyond his facade. This act of bravery not only changes the relationship dynamic, but invites him to a level of self-knowledge that not many achieve. And this is where the true magic of a relationship begins. The key to touching a man's pride effectively lies in balance. It's not about hurting him, but challenging him gently, showing him his own insecurities without making him feel that you are attacking. This type of balance can be difficult to achieve, but when you succeed, you create a dynamic where both grow together, where respect and love are built solidly. What you are learning today is just the tip of the iceberg. The next step is only for those willing to go beyond, for those who seek real transformation. Not everyone is ready for this, and that's what makes it so valuable. This is where many begin to awaken, but others simply leave. If you've made it this far, it's because something inside you knows this information has the power to change everything, and the best is yet to come. And once you understand how to interact with the masculine ego, the rules of the game change completely. It's no longer about what he wants or what you need, but about what both can build together. This type of dynamic is where the strongest relationships are forged and where real love begins to flourish. There's no longer room for fear or insecurities, only for authentic connection. Transformation doesn't happen overnight. It's a continuous process of self-exploration, of understanding what both need and what they are willing to give. Each interaction, each moment is an opportunity to deepen this bond. It's not a destination, it's a constant journey that strengthens with each step both take. When you can access this level of understanding and connection, love is no longer something taken for granted. It converts into something much deeper, something that transforms you and the other person. This is the type of love that transcends ego, that goes beyond expectations and limitations. Authentic love is built on the foundation of vulnerability, respect, and mutual acceptance. Now that you've made it this far, You know that the real challenge is not in how to wound a man's pride, but in how to touch it in a way that converts him into an ally in your life. It's a complicated process, but the most valuable thing of all is that by understanding how to handle his ego, you will understand much more about yourself and about love. This journey is far from over. In fact, it has just begun. You don't need permission to be unforgettable. Have you noticed that the more you try to prove your worth, the more it seems he's looking elsewhere? It's because energy cannot be begged, it can be felt. And what we're going to ignite now is not a trick, it's a transformation. Before continuing, hit that like button and subscribe. Not out of vanity, but because what you're going to hear here doesn't come from a book, it comes from experience. It's for those who are tired of wondering if they're enough. Already fed up with trying to fit into shapes that never serve. This message is for women who don't just want to be chosen, they want to be remembered. Because when you stop trying to conquer and start occupying the space that's already yours, you don't need to chase anything. You attract, you become the moment, you become home. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real. Presence, fire, gravity. Today we're not going to talk about how to please a man. We're going to talk about him never being able to forget you. Stay here. What comes next will change everything. Have you noticed that silence that doesn't bother you, but asks to be felt? That moment when someone comes home from work, throws the keys on the table, passes by you, says a hi that sounds more like a sigh and then stays quiet. The instinct of many people is to ask what happened. Is everything okay? You're strange today, but the woman who listens to silence doesn't flee, she perceives, and it's precisely in this space, without words, that she touches what no one else sees. Men don't always say what they feel, often they don't even know how. Since childhood, they were taught that feeling too much is weakness, and that showing it is dangerous. So they build layers, masks, strategies, but even the thickest armor has a frequency, and those who are truly present learn to listen beyond sound. His silence is not empty. It's a subtle request for connection, an attempt to rest from the constant demand to appear invulnerable. Only almost no one notices, almost no one stops, almost no one feels, almost no one listens. Maybe he won't tell you he had a bad day, that he's frustrated, afraid, or tired of trying to seem like he has everything under control. Maybe he just sits next to you, says nothing, and turns on the television. But there's a code there. He's saying, "Stay with me." He's asking without words, "Do you still see me even when I'm not trying to impress you?" And the woman who listens to silence responds with her body. She doesn't need a manual or explanation. She crosses her legs, lightly leans her shoulder against his, breathes slowly, without hurry, and he feels it's not the touch, it's the vibrations that bring that calm, the lack of demands, the absence of judgment. She understands that silence is not rejection, it's fatigue, that not speaking doesn't mean not feeling, and in this space, where others would demand an emotional performance, she offers silent but complete presence. In Jungian psychology, there exists a concept called inferior function, that part of us that was repressed, forgotten, or never developed. For many men, this function is precisely emotional expression. When a woman can access this territory without invading, without forcing, without wanting to control, she becomes something rare, a bridge between what he lives and what he cannot say. She doesn't need to interpret everything. She needs to be there, be attentive, be with clean energy, be present without expecting anything in return. Because the man, even silent, feels. Feels when someone is with him completely without masks, without demands, as if saying, "I see your shadow, and I'm not afraid of it." And it's this simple presence that can be more intimate than any kiss, because it's the level at which he surrenders when he perceives that she's not there to change him into something else, but to allow him to be what he is, even in silence. There exists a type of look that doesn't demand response. It simply welcomes. It says, "I'm here even if you don't know how to tell me." It's this look that disarms, that opens interior doors that he didn't even know he had locked, because he perceives that with her he doesn't need to always be the strong one. Most people know how to listen only to what is said out loud. The unforgettable woman feels what is not said and doesn't react with anxiety, but with presence, because she's not trying to fix anything. She's simply there completely. This touches the man in a way that no rehearsed phrase can. It's not something rehearsed. I love you. It's silent. I'm here. It's the moment when he looks sideways and perceives. She understood me even without me asking. This is not forgotten. He can forget dates, gifts, words, but doesn't forget who was his refuge when he didn't know how to ask for one. She becomes the place, the being, the type of silence that welcomes, the type of presence that heals. If you've lived this, you know what I'm talking about. That connection that doesn't depend on conversation, that happens in the eyes, in shared breathing, in the pause between one gesture and another, because sometimes he just needs space, air, someone who doesn't pressure, but is still present. It's there that it deepens. Because when a man feels that he can be vulnerable near a woman without losing her respect, he doesn't just connect, he takes root. The woman who listens to silence is not passive, she is sensitive. She decides to act with intention, not out of desperation. She knows she doesn't need to pull him from the shadows, but welcome him when he wants to leave them. And this choice changes everything. Have you thought about why some men pull away when they hear, "I love you"? Maybe because words, when not accompanied by true energy, lose their strength. But when he feels that you see him even in silence, without trying to mold him or measure him, this is worth more than 1,000 declarations. Because true love doesn't shout, it recognizes. If you felt this, right, I listen to silence, because this type of connection is not invented, it happens. And when it happens, it leaves marks, remains, grows, and becomes the foundation for everything that comes after. Because I don't need him to say everything, I feel what he silences. Have you noticed that some moments remain in us without logical explanation? Like when a memory crosses you with a perfume and in seconds you return to a place where you felt alive. Or when someone's simple gesture echoes for days, even after the conversation ended. This happens with the energy of a woman who knows what she carries within herself. You can leave the room, but he still feels you. You can spend the whole day away, but your presence remains in his body, like a memory that touches him without needing words. This has nothing to do with beauty, effort, or performance. It has to do with essence. Men don't remember what was just visual. They remember what was real. They remember how you made them feel. And when your presence is complete, when you surrender completely to the moment, without hurry, without pressure, you don't pass by him, you traverse him. There are women to whom one looks, and there are women who are felt. Do you want to be seen, or do you want to be felt? Because when you are felt, it doesn't matter how many messages he receives, how many faces he sees, how many distractions the world throws at him, he will remember. Will remember your laugh that came in the middle of silence. Will remember how your eyes slowed down time when he was agitated. Will remember how you seemed to know exactly when to say nothing. And with that, everything was said. This energy doesn't shout, it remains. It's the impression that his body keeps even when his head tries to forget. That's why sometimes he catches himself thinking about you for no reason. Not because you were the most beautiful, it's because you were the most present. You were there while the world ran around, and this pause you brought became an emotional refuge for him. Carl Jung said that the unconscious is timeless, and it's exactly this space you access when your energy is real. You become an emotional symbol, an archetype he seeks without knowing. It doesn't matter. The duration holds no power over true connection. The force of a woman who has touched a man's emotions becomes an internal compass he carries forever. When life breaks him down, he returns to that sacred place within himself, whether in conscious thought or unconscious dreams. It resembles that melody that unexpectedly plays and brings tears to your eyes, though you cannot explain why. You embody that melody. You need not be loud. You must be genuine, because authenticity endures. Truth requires no stage, only presence. When you enter a man's world with this energy, he may struggle to articulate it, but his heart will recognize it immediately. This is how you become unforgettable. While others attempt to command attention, you capture his soul. While others strive to be desired, you are remembered during ordinary Wednesday afternoons, in traffic jams, during random thoughts, because your influence reached the deepest level possible, the emotional core. Do you want to know what moves him more than hearing "I love you"? He feels it when, despite physical distance, your memory still soothes his heart. He experiences it when the recollection of your touch continues to ease his shoulders, when remembering your laughter still brings relief on difficult days, when the way you looked at him still provides answers without words needing to be spoken. You don't need to exert tremendous effort to become this woman, because she isn't constructed through techniques or games. She emerges when you stop trying to prove anything, when you begin simply being complete, being present, being yourself without fear of overflowing. This has no formula. It requires surrender, intention, and truth. If at this moment you remembered someone who felt you this way, or if you wish to be that presence that leaves its mark, write in the comments, "I am the energy that remains," because it's not about him remembering you with his mind. It's about him being unable to erase you from his heart. If this touches you somehow, if these words echo within you as something you've always known but never put into words, subscribe. Not for the algorithm, but because here we speak soul to soul. This is rare, this is necessary, and this endures. Now breathe deeply, because what comes next will touch not only him, but you as well. In the place where the woman who feels profoundly, who loves and who lives, finally discovers what she deserves. Reciprocity. Picture a heavy day. No catastrophe, just that weariness that weighs on shoulders, that sensation that the world demands too much and gives too little. He arrives home, closes the door with a sigh so gentle almost no one notices. You sense how he sets down his keys, the silence as he removes his shoes, the lost gaze for 3 seconds before meeting yours. It's not drama, it's contained exhaustion. You don't ask what happened, don't demand explanations. Simply approach and touch his arm, gentle but completely present. It's a touch without demands, without need for response. It's simply presence. And in that moment, something he doesn't understand begins to yield, because men, even the strongest ones, also carry armor. But not all armor needs to be shattered with force. Some dissolves with tenderness. Your touch doesn't shout, "Notice me." It whispers, "Can you lower your guard with me?" What he feels isn't about the touch itself, but about the energy behind it. Your hand there doesn't seek attention, it offers rest. This means more to him than 1,000 declarations of love spoken amid distractions. Because the truth nobody speaks is that men also need a place where their bodies aren't merely desire, but where they rest, where touch isn't an invitation to perform, but a reminder that simply being is enough. Jung spoke about how the body extends the psyche, how each gesture, each physical reaction carries profound symbols. Perhaps you don't realize it, but when you touch him with calm, you activate more than skin. You reach a part of him that cannot name what it feels, but recognizes when it's safe. His nervous system reads the gesture as acceptance. His heart decelerates. His shoulders, which were tense from traffic, from his boss, or from his own internal silence, finally relax. Not because you saved him, but because you permitted it. And this woman is rare. So rare that he won't be able to explain it, only remember it, because the touch that disarms defenses doesn't become an Instagram post, isn't filmed for TikTok. It becomes memory, physical memory. He will remember how your fingers lightly grazed his forearm, wanting nothing in return. He will remember the exact temperature of that moment, not of the room, but of you. And it doesn't need to be grandiose. It can be on the couch, it can be in the kitchen while he talks about something apparently trivial. It can be when he's on the phone and you simply rest your head on his shoulder. And that's where the magic happens. He feels he doesn't need to perform or be invincible. He needs only to exist with you. And you might ask, but what if he doesn't notice? The answer is, he feels it even if he doesn't verbalize it, even if he continues acting as if nothing happened. His body knows, his heart registers, because touch that comes from a sincere place isn't lost. It breaks defenses, it remains. And here's the truth. The world expects men to be constantly strong, always in control, always solving, always proving. But your touch, the one that doesn't demand, that doesn't shout, that doesn't invade, says something revolutionary. It says, here you can be. It's not the touch that calls him to bed. It's the touch that says, even when you're not whole, you're still welcome. And this type of presence, this way of touching, transforms the relationship. Because the woman who touches with her soul, without haste, without agenda, without performance, becomes a place of healing. She doesn't need to constantly say, I love you. She makes him feel loved even in silence. And therein lies the power, not in constantly showing intensity, but in offering consistency. Your hand says, I'm not here to change you. I'm here to remind you that you can breathe. This is rare, and this is what makes you unforgettable. If you've ever seen a man calm down simply with your touch, write in the comments, he felt it. Because the truth is, when you touch with emotional intention, not to gain attention, but to mediate presence, he doesn't forget. He may never say it in words, but his body will know, his soul will remember. You don't need to shout to be heard. Sometimes the gentlest touch speaks loudest. And if this message touched you, it's because you've already been that touch for someone, or you're ready to be. So if this video is showing you something you feel, but the world rarely explains, subscribe, because here we talk about this. Not idealized love, but love that breathes, that feels, that truly touches. Your touch is more than a gesture, it's a message, it's a memory, it's healing. You're not here to ask for a place, you are the place. Have you ever wondered why some men pull away when they're loved, even when everything seems to be going well? It's as if something invisible pulls them away, and you're left trying to understand what was missing. But what was missing wasn't love. It was space, freedom, a type of air that few know how to give, and even fewer know how to receive. Men don't feel loved only when they're together. They feel loved when they can leave without guilt, when they can breathe alone and still feel your presence without pressure. And this isn't about coldness or detachment. It's about something much deeper, emotional trust. Perhaps you think that to keep a man close, you need to always be there, always showing interest, always reminding him how much he matters. But the truth is, the most powerful presence is one that doesn't demand attention to exist. It's the woman who knows that love also lives in the intervals, in the pauses, in the moments when he chooses to be alone. And she doesn't crumble because of it. He can drive aimlessly, sit with friends, or get lost in some silly distraction on his phone, while the world would expect demands, tension disguised as sweet phrases, expectations hidden behind, you didn't even answer me. She simply breathes. She doesn't compete with his freedom. She understands it as part of the bond structure, because she knows the man who can leave without feeling guilt returns with more desire, more surrender, more truth. Mature love isn't measured by hours together. It's measured by the depth of connection, even when bodies are in different directions. This requires strength. The woman who allows this space without anxiety isn't weak. She's solid. She's not afraid of losing because she's not trying to control. She has become the safe place, the point of return, the breath he seeks after facing the world. And here comes something few understand, but which completely changes the emotional game. Men don't fall in love with what they feel under pressure. They fall in love with what they feel when they're free. It's there in the absence that her impact is revealed. When he's in his own world, and yet something inside him pulls him back, not from obligation, but from desire. That's when the bond solidifies, when her memory becomes inner peace and not silent demand. Carl Jung said that to love, ultimately, is to allow the other to be what they are without trying to mold them. And this applies to space, when she doesn't try to fill every void with her presence, when she doesn't try to be in every thought, in every decision. She teaches him that love can coexist with autonomy, that being together isn't being glued together, it's being connected even when separate. This woman doesn't need proof. She doesn't send 3 messages in a row out of insecurity. She doesn't constantly ask, "Where are you? Why didn't you answer? What are you thinking?" Because she already knows. If you need to beg for attention, then you don't want love, you want validation. And she's no longer in that place. She has evolved emotionally, and this evolution is felt, not forced. She chose to trust, not necessarily in the other, but in herself. She trusts that if he leaves, it's not loss, it's redirection. She trusts that if he needs his world for a moment, that doesn't diminish the value of what they have. And this type of trust, this type of silent surrender, isn't learned by reading tips. It's built by living, by listening to your own fears and saying, "I won't diminish myself through insecurity." She understood that it's not absence that destroys love. It's unresolved anxiety projected onto that absence. It's the desperate attempt to fill all voids with certainties. But real love isn't built on forced certainties. It's built on emotional presence, even when physical presence is distant. And most beautifully, when she stops fighting this space, she begins to notice that he returns, that he wants to return. And not from convenience, but because there with her he can be, he can breathe, he can lower his guard, he can make mistakes without being crucified, and succeed without being idolized. He can exist as a man, not just as a partner, but as a whole being. And when a man can be whole with a woman, he doesn't abandon her. He chooses her again and again. She is the refuge, not the place where he's punished, but where he's seen. She's the woman who understands that absence isn't threat, that silence isn't contempt, that giving space isn't giving up. She liberates herself and therefore becomes unforgettable because he doesn't need to flee to find peace. He needs to close his eyes and remember her. In this part, there are no scarcity calls, no requests to comment, subscribe or like, because this chapter is about space, and space, when it's true, speaks for itself. Here the silence is intentional. Here the interval is part of the music, and the woman who understands this doesn't lose the man. She inspires permanence, transforms what would be absence into longing, and longing is what makes someone's heart beat even at a distance. This woman doesn't beg for love. She attracts it with the lightness of someone who has already found herself. She doesn't suffocate, she allows, and by allowing, she becomes the only one he misses. Even without saying it, there exists something that can transform, and it has nothing to do with what you wear, what you say, or how much you give. It has to do with how you look, not with your eyes, but with your presence, with the silent truth of someone who sees beyond behaviors, someone who recognizes even what he tries to hide from himself. Deep down, every man waits for something he cannot ask aloud, to be seen whole, not for achievements, not for his body, not for the role he plays, but for what he is, for what he doesn't verbalize but feels pulsing, even without name. And when a woman has that gaze, that type of presence that doesn't try to fix but to embrace, he feels something he may have never felt, with clarity, permission to be. Not the ideal man, not the one the world demands, but the real man, with flaws, with shadows, with vulnerabilities. And this touches something deeply masculine that sleeps in many men, the freedom to show himself without fear. He won't tell you this. He'll continue taking out the trash, fixing what's broken, and listening distractedly when you complete some task. But when he feels that gaze coming from you, the one that observes without judging, that doesn't label, that doesn't try to change, something ignites in him, because most men grew up learning they need to conquer to deserve, be useful to be loved. And what you do in that moment is silently destroy that lie. In Jung's psychology, there exists the idea that each person carries within themselves a part that was repressed, suffocated, the shadow created by the world's demands. And this shadow is everything he doesn't show: his sensitivity, his insecurity, his fears, his failures. When you look at him and see this too, without fear, without disgust, without correction, it's as if you said, "I see you even when you don't shine." And this heals. You know that moment when he seems more distant, when you feel he's physically present but emotionally far. Sometimes it's not disinterest, it's protection. It's the parts of him that feel they cannot be exposed without loss, without shame. But when you recognize him in small acts, when you genuinely say, "I love how you care for details," he hears something much greater than words. He hears, "I see you, even when the world passes by." This isn't praise, much less flattery. It's recognition. It's active perception. It's when he feels he doesn't need to put on a show to be appreciated. He needs only to exist. And in that place, the relationship stops being negotiation and becomes encounter. Men don't verbalize everything they feel, and most don't know how to express in words how much they're transformed by a gaze of recognition. But they feel it, absorb it, keep every detail of the woman who didn't try to polish them, but who had the courage to love them as they are. Not because they don't need to evolve, but because you know that from recognition is born the safe space to flourish. This woman is rare because she doesn't compete with his ego. She nourishes his essence. She doesn't make him feel tested. She makes him feel whole. And the more whole a man feels with a woman, the more he wants to stay, not from fear of losing her, but from gratitude for having found her. Throughout life, he may have had many women, some beautiful, some intense, some even unforgettable, but the one who remains engraved in memory, the one who resonates deep in the soul, is the one who saw beyond the shell, who saw beauty even in the parts of him he didn't dare show, who instead of falling in love with what he could become, chose to love what he already was, even with the cracks, even with the lacks, even with the silences. This type of love can't be bought, can't be forced, can't be trained. It's conscious presence, it's mutual vulnerability, it's emotional maturity, and it's exactly this that takes root in a man. Not the perfect woman, but the real woman. The one who touches with words, but also with gestures, who observes with admiration, but without demanding performance, who admits mistakes, because she knows that growth only happens when there's space to be imperfect. This gaze doesn't demand attention, it expresses calm. It says, here you can exist without a mask. And when he feels this, he doesn't just respect you, he values you, he considers you safe territory. And there's no greater proof of love for a man than this feeling. Deep down, he doesn't need you to understand everything about him. He needs only that you don't flee when his most confused part appears. Because when you stay, when you see even the parts he's not proud of, you become living memory, even when presence is far. You become the place of return, the inner echo, the point of constant longing. Today, then, I invite you to remember your capacity to see. Look with the eyes of the soul. Look with calm, without haste to change. Be there whole, present with the emotional solidity of someone who says silently, I see you even when you try to hide. No, this is the woman the man carries in memory and in heart. And if this message spoke to that part of you that loves profoundly but often in silence, subscribe, because here meet the intense and real women. Here emotional truth has a voice, and it also remains.